Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In this small village nestled in the hills, where time seemed to pass more slowly, lived Lucas and Gabriel, two twins who, from birth, had been inseparable. Their complicity transcended words, an invisible but unbreakable bond that united their soulmates. They were now 17 years old, and their entire lives revolved around this profound attachment. From a young age, they shared everything. Their bedroom, in the old family home with its sky-blue shutters, was a sanctuary of laughter, secrets whispered at nightfall, and imaginary adventures. The walls, covered with astronaut posters, world maps, and comics, told of their dreams of escape and discovery. Their days were punctuated by complicity. A glance was enough to guess what the other was thinking, a simple touch of the hand to calm a fear or share a joy. They knew each other's weaknesses, but also their strengths. Lucas, with his almost meditative calm, provided the stability needed to temper Gabriel's impulsiveness, always on the move, always ready to challenge limits. Lucas was the reserved boy, the one who preferred to observe before acting. He had deep blue eyes, almost dreamy, and a soft voice that reflected great sensitivity. He loved to spend hours reading, understanding the world, and reflecting on what their future would hold. In his silences, he carried a wisdom unusual for his age, a kind of inner peace that attracted those who knew him. Gabriel, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of energy, always the first to run across the field, climb a tree, or crack a joke to make his brother laugh. His bright smile lit up the room, and his confidence was contagious. He had a natural charm that made you feel instantly at ease in his presence. But behind this cheerful facade, there was an unwavering loyalty to Lucas. Whenever his brother retreated into his own world, Gabriel was there, ready to support him, to defend him against mockery or doubt. Together, they formed a perfect balance. Lucas was the voice of reason, Gabriel the spirit of adventure. Their complicity fascinated their friends and even intrigued the adults of the village, who admired this strong bond. Their family, though modest, was their protective cocoon. Their mother, Marie, was a gentle and courageous woman who had raised her boys with immeasurable love. Every morning, she prepared breakfast, humming an old song their grandmother had taught her. She knew every detail about her sons, their favorite color, their worries at school, their secret ambitions. Her tenderness was a refuge from the storms of the outside world. Their father, Jacques, was a quiet and hardworking man. He spent his days in the fields or repairing tools, but every evening, he found time to sit with his sons and listen to their stories. He had taught them the value of work, the dignity of effort, and above all, the importance of sticking together no matter what. Sometimes, around the fire, he would tell stories of his own father, a humble but proud man, who had built this house with his own hands. In the evening, as the light faded and the village slowly fell asleep, Lucas and Gabriel could often be seen sitting side by side on the old swing in the garden, gazing at the stars. They would talk about their wildest dreams, to become astronauts, artists, inventors. They always promised each other that they would stay united, that nothing and no one could break this unique bond. This autumn morning promised to be peaceful, almost idyllic. The sky was a clear blue, bright and soft, and the light breeze made the leaves dance in golden and red hues, a sign that nature was preparing for winter. Lucas and Gabriel, like every year, were preparing to go hiking with their closest friends. This annual outing was much more than a simple walk. It was a sacred ritual, an adventure that sealed their friendship and their thirst for discovery. They had planned to follow a winding path, snaking through the dense forest surrounding their village. Their backpacks were laden with sandwiches, thermoses of hot chocolate, and a few topographical maps. The excitement was palpable, laughter was ringing, and raised voices mingled with the chirping of birds. Lucas, true to his calm nature, checked the supplies one last time while Gabriel, carefree and mischievous, teased their friends. The two brothers shared a knowing look, a silent exchange that said, "We're ready. Together, nothing can happen to us." But fate had other plans. As they progressed along the path lined with ancient trees, the sky began to cloud over rapidly, as if an invisible hand were obscuring the sun. A distant rumble could be heard, faint at first, then increasingly menacing. The first drops of rain fell, hesitant at first, then soon a veritable deluge fell upon the forest. Branches snapped in the wind, leaves swirled in a chaotic ballet, and the path became a slippery carpet of mud and dead leaves. The storm broke with rare violence, rumbling above them like a roar of nature itself. Then came a sinister crack. An old oak tree, immense and venerable, weakened by past storms, gave way under the force of the gusts. Its torn roots heaved the earth while its gigantic trunk tilted slowly, but inexorably, towards the path where Lucas and Gabriel were. The friends shouted a warning, but the noise of the storm drowned everything out. In a last-ditch effort, the twins threw themselves toward each other, seeking shelter. The oak tree crashed down on them, its massive branches trapping the two brothers side by side, enveloping them in a brutal silence. Time seemed to stand still. The raindrops, the fury of the wind, everything faded before this frozen scene. Lucas and Gabriel, hands linked, looked at each other one last time. No words were spoken, useless, superfluous. Their gaze was a promise of eternity, a force greater than death. The horrified friends rushed to their phones to call for help. But the forest, in its cruelty, had already sealed its secret. When the rescuers arrived, their task was impossible. Their efforts to free the two bodies were in vain. Lucas and Gabriel were gone, united in death as in life. The news of Lucas and Gabriel's tragic deaths had spread through the village like wildfire, shattering the innocence and quiet routine of this close-knit community. That morning, the usual alleys where neighbors greeted each other with smiles were now silent, imbued with a heavy, palpable sadness. Each house seemed to bear the weight of the collective grief. It was impossible for the locals to believe that these two boys, always smiling, full of energy and hope, would never again cross the village gates. Their voices, their laughter, their bursts of joy still seemed to resonate in the air, making their absence all the more unbearable. A few days later, in the old village church, preparations for the funeral ceremony were taking place in solemn silence. The interior was meticulously decorated, with hundreds of white flowers, lilies, roses, daisies, adorning the altar and pews. Soft light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful shards on the emaciated faces of the relatives. The parents, Marie and Jacques, stood there, shattered by unspeakable grief. Their empty gazes seemed to search for a miracle, a reason for the unacceptable. They held preciously the photos of the twins, forever capturing the image of their happy children. But in their eyes, an immense sadness had taken root, a heavy silence speaking more than 1,000 words. As the ceremony began, a wave of emotion rose through the congregation. The priest, a familiar figure, spoke with a trembling voice, trying to convey a message of hope amidst grief. He spoke of eternal love, the bond that transcends life, and the light of souls that never fades, even in the face of death. Tears burst forth, sobs shook bodies, faces twisted in collective pain. The silences were heavy. Each breath seemed labored, as if the very breath of life were suspended. But what left a lasting impression was the presence of the entire community, gathered around the family at this time of trial. It wasn't just close friends or extended family members who came to pay their respects. No, it was also school friends, some with discreet tears, others frozen in disbelief. Neighbors, those who had met the twins at the market or on their way to school, came with compassionate looks. Parish members, who had watched the boys grow up at Sunday Mass, held their parents' hands with sincere sadness. Even those who had never really spoken to the twins or their families stood there, as if struck by this sudden loss. Each had their own story with them, a fleeting memory, a shared smile, a kind word that now took on its full weight. The reactions in the crowd were diverse and complex. Some wept openly, overwhelmed by the cruelty of their fate. Others remained respectfully silent, trying to contain their pain with a meaningful silence. But there were also those whose eyes lit up with a dull, all-consuming anger at the injustice of the tragedy. Why them? Why two boys so young, so full of promise? They whispered, their voices betraying helplessness and dismay. Then came the moment when Mary, the mother, was called to speak. Her voice, fragile at first, rose with unexpected strength. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her words resonated with deep determination. She reminded them that even in the most intense pain, life must go on, that grief must not paralyze them. She spoke of the unwavering love she had for her sons, a love that would always be her guide, a light in the darkness. Lucas and Gabriel taught me that love is stronger than death, she said, her voice soft but firm. Their memory will live on in each of us, in every act of kindness, in every moment we shared. We must honor their memory by living fully, by loving more, by being united. A deep silence followed his words, before the entire assembly slowly rose, as if to respond to this call for hope in the midst of despair. In the weeks following the tragedy, the village seemed to be bathed in a heavy and strange atmosphere, as if suspended between past and future. Daily life, once peaceful and punctuated by the seasons, had lost some of its color. But it was precisely in this silence of pain that the strength of the community began to emerge. Shortly after the funeral, the villagers decided to create a memorial garden in honor of Lucas and Gabriel, a place where the memory of the twins could be transformed into a source of peace and comfort. In the heart of a light-filled clearing, a space was created, wooden benches surrounded by clumps of wildflowers, trees planted in their memory, including a large young oak, a symbol of hope and renewal. An engraved plaque bore their names, along with an inscription, "To Lucas and Gabriel, for eternal love and infinite brotherhood." This garden quickly became a sanctuary for the locals. People came here to mourn, remember, or simply find a moment of calm. Sometimes, children from the village would gather there, playing quietly near the trees, as a way to keep the memory of the two brothers alive. The tragedy also awakened a new awareness among the villagers. Voices were raised to demand concrete measures to prevent such an accident from happening again. A local association, composed of parents, teachers, and elected officials, was created to strengthen security around forest areas, organize training on the risks associated with outdoor activities, and promote prevention among young people. Information signs were installed along the trails, patrols were reinforced during school hikes, and regular awareness-raising workshops were established. The village, once peaceful and carefree, embarked on a collective approach of protection and vigilance. Despite the devastating pain, Marie and Jacques drew strength from their love for their sons to turn their grief into action. With the help of friends and family, they founded L'Espoir de Jumeaux, an organization dedicated to protecting young people in outdoor activities. The foundation worked to raise awareness among families, promote safe outings, and fund equipment for rural rescue. It also provided psychological support for young people and their families who experienced accidents or losses. In every speech, every meeting, Marie and Jacques spoke with emotion about Lucas and Gabriel, their unique bond, and the importance of cherishing every moment with those we love. Time doesn't erase pain, it's true, but in the silence of passing time, it transforms it. Raw grief softens, becomes a gentle presence, a distant melody. For the family, for the village, the memory of the twins has become a powerful symbol, one of unwavering brotherly love, of hope in the midst of loss, and of the solidarity that unites in times of hardship. Every year, as autumn approaches, when the wind picks up and rustles the golden leaves, the story of Lucas and Gabriel comes up in conversations. The elders tell the younger ones about these two inseparable brothers, their laughter, their courage, and that tragic last day that shook an entire village. But beyond the pain, it is their love that endures, a love that continues to live, inspire, and bring people together. The village will never be quite the same again. It now carries within it the memory of two united, luminous souls who, despite their absence, offered a message of hope and life.